Somewhere in British Columbia, there is a truck that has been hauling logs for over 50 years. Half a century of mountain roads, brutal winters, and crushing loads, and it still runs. The people who built it are long gone. The company that made it has changed hands many times. But the truck endures because it was built in an era when a machine was meant to be repaired, not replaced. And that single stubborn old truck is the reason a small Canadian company recently did something that almost no startup in the modern world would ever do. It was offered the kind of money most founders only dream about, tens of millions of dollars, handed over by some of the most powerful investors in the business, and it said no. To understand a decision that strange, you have to understand exactly what that money would have cost. To understand why a company would turn down a fortune, you first have to understand what that fortune would have cost it. The company is called Edison Motors, and it began, fittingly, with an old idea. Founded in 2021 in British Columbia, its founders had spent their lives around heavy trucks, and they had noticed something strange. The technology that could make a logging truck dramatically more efficient was not new at all. It was nearly a century old. Railway locomotives had used it since the early 20th century. The principle is elegantly simple. Instead of a diesel engine driving the wheels directly through a transmission, the diesel engine does just one job. It runs a generator. That generator makes electricity, and that electricity powers electric motors at the wheels. It is called a diesel-electric series hybrid, and it gives you the enormous instant torque of an electric motor, perfect for dragging a loaded truck up a mountain grade, combined with the freedom to refuel anywhere in 5 minutes, in the middle of nowhere, with no charging station and no power grid in sight. It was a beautifully practical notion. Take the proven, durable technology that had moved trains across continents for decades and adapt it to a truck that climbs logging roads. The genius was not in inventing something new. The genius was in recognizing that the right answer had already existed for 100 years, waiting for someone to apply it. And from the very beginning, the company built its identity not around the novelty of the technology, but around a philosophy of how a machine should be made. That philosophy had 3 pillars, and each of them would soon be tested by a great deal of money. The first pillar was durability, building a truck meant to last for decades, the way that 50-year-old log hauler had lasted. Not a vehicle designed to be traded in and thrown away, but a machine engineered to keep working long after its first owner was done with it. The second pillar was the right to repair, making a machine that the person who owns it can actually fix in their own shop with parts they can actually buy, without being forced to return to the manufacturer for every small problem. And the third pillar was independence, keeping control of the company in the hands of the people who actually believed in those first 2 ideas. And it was that third pillar, independence, that the money came for. As the company grew and its unusual trucks began to attract attention, the investors began to circle. Not the small ones, the large ones. Private equity firms and venture capitalists, the kind of money that moves in tens of millions of dollars at a time. The numbers being discussed were staggering for a young company, reaching into the range of $50 to $100 million. For most startups, this is the entire goal. This is the moment every founder is supposed to dream about. The moment the big money arrives and validates everything. But something about those conversations did not sit right, because when the powerful investors spoke, they did not talk about the trucks. They did not ask about the durability, or the right to repair, or the philosophy the whole company was built on. They talked about one thing above all others, the exit. how quickly the company could be taken public, sold off, and cashed out. The investment was not, at its heart, a belief in what the company was building. It was a bet on how fast it could be flipped for a profit. The trucks were almost incidental. The real product, to these investors, was the company itself, to be bought, inflated, and sold. And the people running the company had seen, many times over, exactly where that road leads. They had watched it happen to beloved brands across nearly every industry. An outside firm buys a great company, and then, slowly and methodically, it strips away the very things that made that company great. The quality quietly drops, the prices steadily rise. The details that customers fell in love with vanish, one by one, because every single decision is now measured against one ruthless question. How do we maximize the return for shareholders before we sell? And the warning signs in their own industry were not hypothetical. The trucking world had already watched other ambitious startups burn brightly and then collapse. Companies that raced to go public on a wave of hype, promised far more than they could ever deliver, and left behind recalls, failures, and fleets of trucks pulled off the road over safety problems. Speed had killed them. The relentless pressure to grow faster than the product could actually mature had destroyed the very thing the money was supposed to create. The founders looked at those wrecks and saw their own possible future. So the company made a decision that, on paper, looks almost irrational. Not to all money. A company still needs capital to build a factory and put trucks on the road, but it said no to the specific kind of money that comes with strings attached directly to the steering wheel. No to the investors who demanded control in exchange for their millions. No to the firms whose only genuine interest was a fast and lucrative exit. And then it did something quietly radical instead. Rather than sell control to a handful of powerful funds, the company opened its doors to ordinary people. It raised money through public crowdfunding, letting everyday Canadians, the very same kind of people who drive these trucks and work in these industries, buy a real piece of the company directly. The money still came in, but the control and the vision stayed exactly where the founders wanted them. The capital arrived, and the soul stayed home. It is worth being completely clear about what this choice actually means, because this is not a fairy tale about a company that refused all money. It is still raising capital, and it still has shareholders who, of course, expect to see a return on what they put in. The difference is the kind of relationship behind the money. The investors the company welcomed are the ones who want it to succeed by building good trucks and selling them at an honest profit, not by gutting the company and flipping it to the next buyer. And so the founders made a public promise. And it was a strange one for a startup to make. They promised that they would not be the fastest growing company in the world. They promised to fight, slowly and stubbornly, through every manufacturing challenge and every supply chain challenge it takes to build something real, while keeping their own hands firmly on the wheel. In an industry obsessed with speed, they chose, deliberately, to go slow. And underneath this entire decision sits a surprising truth about where the company's real value actually lives. Here is the part that the powerful investors never quite understood. They assumed the value of the company was locked inside its technology, some secret, patented breakthrough that no competitor could ever copy. But there is no such secret. There never was. The diesel-electric idea is a century old. The parts that go into these trucks are bought off the shelf from the same major suppliers that any large truck maker in the world could call tomorrow morning. The batteries, the axles, the core components, none of it is proprietary magic. In purely technical terms, there is very little here that a giant, established manufacturer could not replicate if it decided to. So if the real value is not hidden inside some unique piece of technology, then where exactly does it live? The answer is the one thing that private equity is least equipped to see, because it does not appear cleanly on any balance sheet. The value is in the trust. It is in a brand that genuinely means something to the people who buy it. The very same reason a veteran trucker will stay loyal to one make for his entire working life. Not because its bolts are somehow different, but because of what that badge has come to represent to him. It is in a company that looks a customer in the eye and promises that you will be able to repair your own machine. It is in a company that refuses, as a matter of principle, to build in the deliberate obsolescence that forces people to keep buying. It is in treating the customer and the worker as something more than a number in a quarterly report. That kind of value cannot be purchased, and it cannot be installed by an investor writing a check. It can only be built, slowly, by actually keeping your promises, year after year. And it is the very first thing destroyed when a company is bought and stripped for parts. This is the quiet paradox sitting at the center of the entire story. The most valuable thing this company owns is the exact thing that the money would have quietly killed. The most valuable thing a company can own is not its technology, and it is not its money. It is its reason for existing. The moment that reason is sold, the moment the trucks and the workers and the customers all become secondary to the speed of an exit, everything that made the company worth building in the first place quietly disappears. A 50-year-old truck still hauling logs through the mountains is not just a machine. It is living proof that things can be built to last by people who care more about the thing itself than about how quickly they can sell it. That is a philosophy far older than any company, and it is worth more than any amount of money ever offered to abandon it. And maybe that is the real lesson hiding inside an old logging truck. This is what Timeless Treasures exists for: the machines and the people who still believe something should be built to last. If that's your kind of story, subscribe.